I miss her, and I don't even know how to explain that without it sounding simple, because it's not. It's not just, I miss her. It's everything that comes with that. It's the random moments during the day where something reminds me of her, and for a second, I forget that she's not part of my life anymore. Like I'll see something I know she would have liked, or hear a song we used to listen to, or think of a joke I would have sent her, and there's a split second where my brain goes, I should tell her, and then it just stops, because I remember. And that moment, it never gets easier, because it's not just missing a person, it's missing the version of your life that existed with them in it. The routines, the conversations, the way things felt normal. It's like your life keeps moving, but there's this part of it that just doesn't fit the same anymore. And I think that's what people don't really understand. They think missing someone is just about thinking of them, but it's more than that. It's how often they show up in your thoughts without you even trying. It's how something as small as a place, or a smell, or a random memory can completely shift your mood. And suddenly, you're not just where you are anymore. You're back in those moments, back when things felt different, back when she was there. And it's weird, because time keeps passing. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and on the outside, it looks like you're moving on. You're doing your thing, you're living life, you're talking to other people, but internally, there are still moments where it feels like nothing has changed, where the absence still feels as real as it did in the beginning. And I think that's the part that's hard to explain, because it's not constant. It's not like you're sitting there missing her every second of every day. It comes in waves. Sometimes you're completely fine, distracted, busy, focused on other things, and then out of nowhere, it hits. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be in the middle of something important, and suddenly your mind just goes back to her, to how things were. And it's not even always the big moments. It's the small ones that stay with you the most. The way she would talk about random things, the way she reacted to stuff, the little habits you didn't think much of at the time. Those are the things that come back, and when they do, it feels so real. Like for a second, it's not even a memory. It feels like something you could go back to, but you can't. And that's the part that makes it hurt, because you don't just miss her, you miss something that you can't recreate, no matter how much time passes, no matter who you meet, because it was that version of her, that version of you, that moment in time, and now it's gone. And I think what makes it even harder is that there are things I never got to say, things I thought I would have more time to figure out, conversations I assumed would happen eventually, and now they just won't. You don't really realize how much you rely on that idea of later until there is no later, until everything you wanted to say just stays in your head, and you have nowhere to put it, so you just sit with it. And sometimes you start replaying things, conversations, moments, decisions, thinking about what you could have done differently, what you should have said, what you shouldn't have said. And even if you know it doesn't change anything, your mind still goes there, because a part of you is still trying to make sense of it, still trying to find a version of the story where it turned out differently, but it didn't. And that's something I'm still trying to fully accept, because missing someone isn't just about them being gone. It's about everything that left with them, the way they made you feel, the way they understood you, the way you didn't have to explain certain things. That kind of connection, it's not easy to replace. And I don't think it's supposed to be, but that doesn't make it any easier, because even when you know you'll eventually be okay, that doesn't stop you from missing what you had. And I think that's something people don't say enough, that you can move forward and still miss someone. You can accept that it's over and still wish it wasn't. You can know it wasn't right and still feel the absence of it. Those things can exist at the same time, and that's what makes it confusing, because part of you understands, but another part of you just feels. And feelings don't always care about logic. They don't follow timelines. They don't disappear just because you want them to. They just show up. And sometimes all you can do is let them. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it catches you off guard. Even when you wish you were already past it. Because I don't think missing someone is something you just get over. I think it's something you learn how to carry. Something that becomes a little quieter over time, but never fully disappears. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it just means that what you had actually mattered. And I think this is the part that I don't really say out loud, because missing her isn't always soft. It's not always just memories and nostalgia. Sometimes it's heavier than that. Sometimes it turns into this quiet kind of frustration, not at her, not even fully at the situation, but at myself. Because when you have enough distance from something, you start seeing it differently. You notice things you didn't notice before. You understand things you didn't understand at the time. And that clarity, it doesn't always feel good, because now you can see your own mistakes, the times you didn't show up the way you should have, the things you said without thinking, the things you didn't say when you had the chance. And those moments, they don't just disappear, they sit with you. And sometimes missing her turns into missing the chance to do things differently, like wishing you could go back, not to relive everything the same way, but to fix the parts you got wrong, to be more present, more patient, more aware. But you don't get that opportunity, and that's a different kind of weight, because now it's not just about losing someone, it's about living with the version of the story that already happened, and knowing you can't rewrite it. And I think that's where a lot of the silence comes from, because how do you explain that? How do you explain that you miss someone, and at the same time, you're still trying to come to terms with how things ended? So you just keep it to yourself. You act like you've moved on, like it doesn't affect you anymore, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Time passes, you move forward, you stop looking back. But it's not that simple, because sometimes moving forward doesn't mean you've made peace with it. It just means you've learned how to carry it quietly. And then there are moments where it hits differently, not because of a memory, but because of what's happening now. Like when something good happens and she's not the person you tell anymore, or when something goes wrong and you realize she's not there the way she used to be. And it's not about needing her, it's about noticing the absence in places where she used to exist. And that absence, it's loud, even when everything else is quiet. And I think that's what makes it hard to fully let go, because it's not just about the past, it's about how the past still shows up in your present, in the way you think, the way you react, the way you connect with other people. Because whether you realize it or not, she changed you. Not completely, but enough. Enough to where certain things don't feel the same anymore. Enough to where you approach people a little differently. And sometimes that makes it harder to move forward, because you're not the same person you were back then, and neither is she. But the version of her that exists in your head, that version doesn't change. It stays exactly how you remember it. And that's dangerous in its own way, because now you're comparing real life to something that only exists in your memory. And memories don't have flaws the same way reality does. They get softened over time. The good parts feel stronger, the bad parts fade a little, and suddenly what you miss feels almost perfect, even if it wasn't. And that makes it harder to fully let go, because you're not just missing her anymore, you're missing the idea of what it felt like to be with her. And that feeling, it's hard to replace, not because no one else can give you something good, but because it was specific. It belonged to a certain time, a certain version of you, a certain connection, and nothing else is going to feel exactly like that. And maybe that's what I'm slowly starting to understand, that moving on doesn't mean replacing what you had. It just means making space for something different. But that doesn't happen instantly, because first you have to let go of the version of her that you keep holding on to, the version that only exists in your memories, the version that feels easier to miss than the reality of how things actually were. And that's not easy, because holding on to that version feels better than fully accepting that it's over. So you stay in between, not fully holding on, but not fully letting go either, just revisiting it every now and then. And maybe that's part of the process. Maybe missing her isn't something that just disappears. Maybe it changes, becomes less intense, less frequent, less overwhelming, but still there, in small ways, in quiet moments, in things you don't even expect. And maybe that's okay, because it doesn't mean you're stuck. It just means what you had left an impact, and not everything that impacts you is meant to stay forever. Some things are just meant to be felt, learned from, and eventually let go of, even if a part of you will always miss her.